We are recording.
Thank you, sir. Well, good morning, all. And a very cold, early cold winter up here in New York this year, and pretty good snow accumulations already. So, let's see. Well, let's go around to introductions today, but it looks like everybody's kind of the regular group. But Chuck, you're on my screen first, so go ahead and say hello.
Hello, everybody. Just gonna try to keep the information flowing. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome. Ted, good morning there. I'm assuming you're in Florida. It's way too cold to be up here in the Northeast.
How you doing, Brian and the group? Yes, summertime we're in Connecticut. Wintertime in Florida, where we are right now, 70 degrees, and yes, very cold in Connecticut. So good to see the crowd here, and we'll send it back to you, Brian.
It's a balmy 24 degrees here today. It's warm. So, all right. Good morning, Mark. And where are you? I'm assuming you're in North Carolina, not in West Orange, New Jersey.
Well, being as I'm probably the only one by the name of Mark on here, I'll go. So good morning, everyone. This is Mark N2MH. I am in West Orange, New Jersey right now. I am not in North Carolina. And we've had a little bit of snow on the ground, but I'm here.
And you just locked up.
No, not locked up. I just saw something pop up on the screen here in the chat. Okay, well, anyhow, I'm here, and good morning to everyone.
Good morning. It's good to see you. Miskos, great to see you this morning. Hello.
Hello, Ryan and group, and good morning to all of you. Even though for me it's lunchtime, 3:00 p.m. Here in Serbia, approximately 5 to 6 Celsius in plus degrees. It's winter, of course, but it's okay. No snow, no fog today. It's not a busy day today. Hello to all once again.
Good morning. Don, good to see you this morning.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Don Goen in Portland, Connecticut. And it's been cold for a week. So outside of that, everything else is in pretty good shape.
Good to see you. Alan, NHWQ, good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Brian. Good morning to everybody. Nothing new here except I need to get a new power supply for my packet station. So I'm temporarily offline while I research and figure out which kind of power supply I want. Good to see you guys.
Well, let me make a recommendation for your consideration. Jason W4APR and RPC Electronics, he makes this little adapter that for like $25 you can get a server power supply for a computer, and they've got an edge connector, and he makes an edge connector that's got power pole connectors right to it, and it's a very inexpensive way to have a very good power supply. In fact, when he did the presentation for his node stacks, that's what he was using. So you might want to consider that as an inexpensive but very reliable way to do a power supply for packet.
Sure, that sounds like a good idea. Thanks. I'll check it out.
RPC Electronics is what you're going to look for.
Okay.
Website, and then it's just a standard. They're like $25, and I think they're 10, 15, 20 amps. So it's a good way to do a power supply, and gets it clean with all the power poles. So
sounds
Charles,
good.
Let's hear from you, because we haven't heard from you yet today. And you're muted too. Look at that.
Well, I didn't want to blow your ears out, Brian. Oh, man. Okay, 29 degrees. Not too far different from Mark. I'm only 5 miles away from him. The RF is up. Thank you, Mark, for helping with that. We have had a few stations check in on RF. I don't see anybody here in the New York City area, but it's 145.770. So that's been running pretty good. I've got a list of different things to go over, so we'll just
Get
hold
you.
that for a while.
No problem.
Brian, could I just interrupt a minute?
Yeah, go ahead. Tom.
Would everybody put their name, call sign, and location in the chat? Make it easy for me to put it all together in the minutes. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
See, I leave mine like this, Donald, because when I go on business Zoom conferences, I want them to know I'm a ham. It gets this conversation started. So I just leave this as my default.
Yeah, that would be okay too, and then I just can take a clip. But no, not everybody has that. So
Yeah, and I have to jump back and forth
if
because
you can, yeah, so do I. So if you can put it in the chat, then I'll just take a clip of the chat, and that'll make it easy to do the minutes.
All right,
Thanks.
that's good. Jason, N8FLA. Good morning. Say hello. You're muted, Jason. Well, maybe you don't even have a mic.
Nope, I got it.
There you go.
Okay. I was in the chat there. Yeah, thanks. I'm new around here. I just recently got a BPQ node up, and I'm trying to get connected to the packet radio forwarding network. I've got a Vara switch, and that seems to be going well, and I'm here to learn.
Where are you located in Florida?
I'm in Delray Beach.
And that must be, that's on.
Like just north of Miami, South Florida.
Can you hear any of the stations that are already on the EastNet? No, they're quite a bit north of you, so it probably.
Yeah, quite a bit north.
Okay, well, good. Well, welcome.
Okay, Brian.
Yes.
Let me jump in here. Jason, we're in Melbourne, Florida, and we're trying to get a connection to the south in your direction. So
perfect.
Maybe we should work together somehow, and we need a hop. We used to connect to Fort Pierce, but they went down. So it'd be great if we could hook up with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm connected up to the Panhandle on Vara. That's been going very well. And then there's the packet group down here. They've got a number of nodes, so I'm sure we can work that out.
Okay, before we leave, we can exchange emails possibly.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, George, good morning, sir. And you don't have your call sign up, just like I don't. So when you say hello, give us your call. George, you're on mute. I don't know if you're.
He may have stepped away from the computer.
All right, well, let's go to Paul. Good morning, sir. How are things in?
Oh, there he is.
There he goes. George, go ahead.
Yeah, morning. First time on this. I'm actually at work, so I'm going to try to keep up.
Okay.
Call sign KE2FIS.
Well, good morning, George. Where are you?
Actually, I'm at work in Queens, New York right now.
Oh, so you're down in the city. Okay. Good. Welcome.
Thank you.
Paul, K1YZC in Meriden, Connecticut, correct? If I'm remembering things properly?
Yes, Brian, this is Paul. Not too much new on the node. Did some software corrections, and Charles and Mark have been a great assistance. So far I haven't gotten any emails, so I guess what I've done might have corrected some of it. So we'll just keep monitoring, and always here to learn from the expertise of the group.
Yeah, Paul, everything's working good between us.
Excellent. Good morning, Paul. All right, Mark, N5MDT. Good morning. Say hello, and I think you're new to the group this time. You there, Mark?
He put up in the chat that he does not have a camera or microphone. He's just able to listen.
Okay, well, you'll be entertained then. Let us entertain you. All right. Well, we've done the introductions. Charles?
You still got BKW and LJK from Maine.
Where did they shuffle around? I don't see them. Oh, Brian, yeah, people turn their cameras on and off and things shuffle. Good morning, Brian.
Good
What's up?
morning.
Yeah, there-
W1BKW up here in Maine. It is snowy, cold, and frozen lakes. So winter is well upon us.
indeed it is. And Damon, good morning, sir. How are you today? Damon? Shuffling. Oh, there you are. There you go. You're muted, Damon. I'm not hearing your audio. You're not muted on my screen, but you're not sending any audio.
It's probably going out his signal link up to 40 meters. I think MDT's got audio now. I thought I heard something.
Yeah, he already said something. Or no. Wait a minute. Yeah, Mark already. No, go ahead, Mark.
I don't even know if it works. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, sound good.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm crashing. I'm really not up in the eastern part, so I was just listening in.
Where are you from?
Texas.
Very good. What? Give me a quick introduction on your interest of being on this call today. What do you?
That's a big place. Where in Texas?
About 50 north of Houston.
Thank you.
Talk to us about your digital interests and why you decided to join the call today.
Like I said, I'm just crashing to see what y'all are up to, and I've been doing this since I don't know 90s, I guess.
Good. So you're an old school packet person. We need more.
Yeah,
All
pretty
right.
much.
Well, welcome.
I was using BBQ when it was. I stopped using it because it didn't really work all that well, and John's finally refined it over the years, and it works pretty good now.
Oh, Chuck's just singing your praises here today. Chuck says he's your favorite Elmer. So that's awesome.
Hey, Mark, you just recently helped me get the Vara switch going, so thank you. Nice to meet you.
I did. Thank you. You're welcome to call me anytime if you need anything.
Great. Thank you. I will.
Anybody is, in fact.
We loved having some old school packeteers, from back in the day, XNet or X1J, the net. Yeah, we've done it all.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to get really some critical mass with new packet systems. Charles, why don't we go down your list today? Because I think I got everybody now, right?
And Damon, you still having trouble with audio?
Yeah, there you go. Good morning, Damon.
Yep, just wanted to say hello. I'll be in and out this morning. I wasn't planning on making this at all. Nothing new to report from the mid-coast of Maine, except there was a BPQ test by WD10 on the Maine Mid-Coast Network, which was posted on the BPQ groups. And my only other quick comment is, since I'll be checking out early, is I now am up to, I think, 5 new packet radio. I think it's the version 2 with BTEC power amplifiers that I'm hoping to purpose for the Mid-Coast Network's backbone. So just had some initial conversations with WD10 about using that along with a bunch of 220 radios to hopefully start breaking this out. So that's a little bit exciting news. I just need the locations now. So.
Well, that's great. Have you been testing the new packet radio? How's it been working?
No, I've only started to get enough that I can now have more than one is pretty useless to test. So I would expect, and this is a very busy time of year, that's why I'm going to have to be checking out shortly. But I'm hoping to have some time by midwinter to have at least a couple temporarily in place over about 10 miles to see how they work.
So one of the things, Damon, if you're able to start looking and possibly getting sites, don't hesitate to get coordinates and mounting heights and email me, and I can check paths to see if they're going to work fairly quickly. So if you get suggestions for sites that you're trying to build links between locations, I can run RF path studies to see if they're going to work.
Yep, I already started to do some of that. Appreciate the offer. The most disappointing aspect of this is one of the problems on the mid-coast is that we're more populated by the coast, elevation 0. And then
the mountains get up
are made out of rock.
pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, hello to everybody, and I'll be monitoring.
Well, great to hear the good news. Thank you. All right, Charles, now you can talk.
Oh, geez. Anyway, let's see. I know there's been a few. All right, I already touched on the, before we started. So I've got the BBS system up on RF on 145.770, and just need to find some people who are like further away, like towards Nassau County, to see how well they are able to get into the system. I have had a few people involved with the NTS system come in on RF and use it for dropping outgoing messages, but we're having an issue trying to get incoming messages on NTS because there was a new Region 2 coordinator, Sean, who's not too far from you up in Clinton, New York, Brian. So until he gets his thing put together, I already gave him an allocation for 44net and made some suggestions on different stations he could try to connect to, including Andrew, who is not here today. So once we get that all squared away, then we'll get some forwarding through Andrew, through NC2C, and all the way around the network, and with his AXIP backbone. And that should work. I don't know how many of you are on the 44net different mailing list from ARDC, but there's been a lot of chatter over the past couple of days. And I had Jerry, N9LYA, send me a somewhat in a panic email last night. He wasn't sure what they were all doing, and he was afraid he would have to change his allocations. And I said, no, don't worry about it. All this stuff that's going on now is that they're just shifting from their beta testing VPN system over to a full-time VPN system with a whole new range of IP addresses. Plus, at the same time, they throttled how many people can register for the new numbers. So they're doing this in batches. So it's just like typical ARDC stuff. Rather than open it up and tell everybody how to use it, it's like, oh no, we're going to throttle things. And people get a little frustrated by that, or the information's not too clear. And then I get an email from somebody like Jerry saying, I don't know what's going on. So that's what's going on with that.
They're not shifting. They're just opening up the concept of what we did with the ham gates in all of your states.
Yeah, we've been doing it since April 22.
Right. But that's fine. That, as messed up as the ARDC is going to make this, it's encouraging, though, because the people outside of states that you've been working with are going to be able to more easily start to use 44net. So it's encouraging in that regard. But I'm also optimistically cautious because since they don't make a deliberate effort to keep the unwashed internet out of it.
That's the big issue as far as I see it. They are putting the full impetus on the user at their end of the tunnel.
Right. Not realizing that the ones that couldn't get IP tunnels working, now they're going to use the easy route, and then they aren't going to be the ones that are going to be smart enough to keep the unwashed internet out of it.
Well, that's just it. How many hams really know even the basics about computer networking? Very little.
Well, yeah, building up firewall rules is not a fun thing. And
no, it's not. Yeah, I was playing at UFW the other day, and I forgot one stupid little thing. Turn routed on. So I was wondering why things weren't going through from the NCAP stuff. But anyway, when there is incomplete knowledge either being sent out by a group like ARDC or hams that don't have the exposure to it, then that's where different problems come up and misunderstandings.
Well, as you mentioned, as I raised this concern with you personally when we talked the other day, you've got the ability to quickly, cut off anybody that makes a mistake and and lets the unwashed internet into the 44 net through the ham gates on our end anyway. So you're already prepared for that. And
Well, it was a design philosophy that NI2O and I had when we started this, is that, as Mark put it in the documentation, we are not your internet. We are 44net, and we are ham radio only. You want internet services? Go the regular route. Don't use our network for that. But then we get questions come up from those who have things like all-star repeaters. Well, we've had this up for many years, and we're used to dealing with the great unwashed internet. How do we make it work with 44net? Well,
real easy.
Well, it's a really easy thing. I mean, your WireGuard VPN tunnel will be the 44net up and down, and your default route will go to your regular, firewall and router that you have in your house to be natted and passed around. And anything coming back in, just use port forwarding techniques. I mean, it's not that difficult.
Yeah, hopefully it'll work itself out, One of my favorite politically correct statements is, we had previously indicated that this was going to be a likely outcome, which is politically correct speak for I told you so.
Yeah, well.
But you know what? You've got your states under control that are under your area of responsibility. I want to remain optimistic that we'll encourage more static IPs with the 44net, and it'll eventually get better. So good for that. Chuck's kind of nodding his head like he believes that too, or wants to believe that. But all right, go ahead to the next on your list.
All right. Well, just as an add-on to that one topic that ARDC's doing, is that there was also a question I saw over the past couple of days, and Brian BKW, I think you were on that chat, that there were some subnets that ARDC was using or will issue allocations to if you're not part of a requested state connection. Like, we really want our people up in the Northeast to go through the states. It's easier to route them. And part of that reason is that some of these other subnets that they would be randomly assigned to are not designed for NCAP routing. And ARDC states that flat out, that it's for your experimentation.
Right, and it makes it harder to create firewall rules.
Right. So people don't understand that, and that's why I just keep pushing that if we're going to be talking to packet operators that want to get onto 44net, at least in our 11 states up here in the Northeast, that they do it through the links for that particular state that they're in. Don't randomly go to ARDC and have them assign something to you, because you may wind up in a subnet that you can't route. I forget what the number is, 44, 61, or 63, something like that. You just can't route it. It was designed that way. So that's just something that we need to get on top of. Okay, so that's the... N2MH, I'll leave this one to the end because it involves Arden Mesh, even though it's part of 44net routing. We'll just leave that to the end, okay? On the ham gates side, the PBX, we recently got some more people signed up. NS2B now has an extension, 6993. He's on the system now. I set him up this week. If any of you know people who have some deeper VoIP interfacing knowledge, two things that I want to be able to connect to the PBX are connections to things like Zello or even Zoom. Okay, so like right now, supposedly there's a way to get the audio off the Zoom call and make it available. We can shove it into the Asterisk PBX. but I have not been able to trace that down yet. I don't know where the information is.
Charles, that might be a paid feature.
Okay, like I said, I don't know. If somebody does know it, great. If it is a paid feature, oh well. I'm not paying for Zoom.
That's interesting that in an emergency situation, if we have to cross connect with the groups that are on a Zoom call, that I could see that being beneficial. But
right. A lot of the government agencies will use a Zoom type system. And if we need to interface that to one of, the conference rooms or emergency management extensions on the PBX, that would be a useful feature, which then ties into, well, Asterisk also has this function for doing video, but all the experimentation I've been doing, I can't get one extension to accept a video call from the other. So I don't know what's missing. This is not something we used when NI20 and I first did this on Wall Street. That was like 20 years ago. So this might be something newer that I just haven't gotten the grasp of yet. So those are the kind of things I'd like to get squared away, because our trunk lines to other VoIP systems like Hams over IP and Amateur Wire and Mesh Phone, they're working great. Nice and smooth. I watched the CLI screen and everything is nice and flowing and everything. So that's good. I know we got some people on here that are running a Windows version of BPQ as opposed to the Linux version. If you're running the Windows version, make sure that you're running it in administrator mode so that you can get the AXIP working on the Windows level. And I think MDT is the one who sent me the information on this number of months ago. It works. You just got to be, well, like we talked about a little bit before, Brian, that you need to get your firewall right. If you're afraid of people hacking your system and running this as administrator mode, well, get your firewall right. And then you've protected yourself. So, that's neither here nor there. All right, Mark, on the Arden Mesh stuff, okay, there was an announcement that they now have in their new firmware the ability to route 44net traffic. Have you been working with that? I do know that you've been running your JNOS with your Arden Mesh like in a gateway fashion for quite a while now. But do you know about the Arden Mesh and the 44net directly? Because there's some projects coming up, including one that I'm trying to put together here in New York City for some of the hospitals that would require that type of capability.
Okay. They've been working on something like this for almost a year now, maybe even more. I really don't have too much faith in that they know what they're doing, to be honest with you. Okay. They're trying to be creative and do a lot of different things. I tried it once. I didn't like how it worked, but that was very early in the game. I don't know what they're up to now, and I don't think they fully understand networking like we were discussing before early in the call.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't have too much faith in it. If you want to go ahead and try it and be a pioneer, be my guest. I'm steering clear of it. As far as 44net goes, I'm keeping that off of the mesh, and that's my position right now.
Are you allowing it as a gateway type into the mesh, or?
I don't know how they're doing it or what they think they're doing. Okay. They're mixing up 10 network and 44 network in one routing table, and I don't know that's a good idea.
That might get.
Yeah.
All right, but okay, using the 10 network because of the supernode concept, right?
Well, they originally started using the 10 network just because they try to idiot-proof it, because when people are just ad hoc joining a network, then the whole mesh concept, that nobody had to have a knowledge of the network to join it. And that's always been the mantra in the Arden world. And because of that, there are a lot of people who don't understand networking and automatic DHCP and ranges and all that stuff is automatically assigned with that. And then, of course, with the transition to Babel, probably made that more complex. You're kind of nodding your head there, Chuck. Or you go ahead. You can speak up because you're more knowledgeable on it than I am.
Come on, Chuck. We want to hear what you have to say.
You're muted, by the way. Oh, he's typing so that he can get his.
Cat's got his tongue.
No, let's see. Yes, Artem.
I don't think so, Chuck. I think it is a bunch of idiots. To be honest with you.
Well, it's designed more for the appliance operator. Is that a good politically correct way to do it?
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think so, but I also think that they got a problem overall with their routing, and I don't like the way it's not routing correctly these days. I could get on one of my nodes, and I can't even ping one of my neighbor nodes.
What you're experiencing, Mark?
Say again?
The Babel is routing differently now. Is that what you're experiencing?
Well, they're trying to mix Babel and OLSR in the same boxes. Plus, I got a feeling they got Babel wrong, and I also think they're playing games with supernodes and doing some things with routing that they shouldn't be doing. And in my experience, the routing is falling apart, and I'm staying away from it.
Well, interestingly enough, our Arden mesh up here in upstate New York, we haven't joined supernodes. We just do tunnels to the people that we know their part of the network seems to be working okay. And so I have not been really ambitious about jumping on a supernode. So,
well, as long as you stay on your own local network and not go through a supernode, I think you'll be okay.
That was going to be my next question, Mark. Because I had no intention of putting Brooklyn on the supernode. I wanted to keep it just local.
We're tunneling to each other when we can't do the RF connections, and we're not on supernodes. And Mark, sometimes through Andrew K1YMI, we have to disconnect him because you guys sometimes are part of supernodes and we see weird stuff, and we'll sever that. Like if we're doing an event and we need it to, and some of those problems seem to go away. So I would. In our limited experience, I think we're seeing some of the weird stuff that you're talking about too, but we just don't try to troubleshoot it. We just sever from anybody that might be connected to supernodes, and the problem goes away. We do our thing, and then we connect it later on. That's what we've been doing.
Personally, I think you're better off staying off a supernode the way it is right now.
We've been happy with the Arden on the way we've been using it, so
yeah,
that would be conducive to what you just said. So.
Now, having said what I said before about 44net and Arden, for the longest time, I was actually running 44 network over my Arden network, but I was doing it as IP NCAP, point to point.
Yep.
Okay, I was encapsulating 44net within the Arden frames, and it worked fine. But now that the routing's crapped out, I actually had to come up with my own WireGuard tunnel between North Carolina and New Jersey, and that worked super.
Did that problem, go away if you were not on supernodes? Was it a supernode issue?
I think if you stayed within your own regional network. So, for example, I guess you guys have an upstate New York network.
Well, it's a loose one. We just don't connect to any supernodes.
Yeah, well, I think you're pretty safe in doing that.
Okay.
I think within the network, the node count is low enough where you will get decent routing. But I got a feeling at the end of the day that Babel is not going to scale well with large numbers of nodes. I think that's what they're going to find out.
And given all the limited horsepower on each of the nodes that has been implemented on, that would, so large routing tables would probably start to make it puke.
Well, having that is not such an issue anymore, in that one of the images that you can get from Arden is an x86 image, so you can run it on a PC.
We did that on one guy did it on, yep.
Yeah, and both of my supernodes are running on, actually in a virtual machine on Proxmox. So they're running very nicely. but they can't route to each other. And that's a big problem in my mind.
Especially if they're supernodes.
Yeah. Yep. I found that to get reliably to a neighbor node, I have to turn off all my other neighbors.
And that's what we're doing, and that's probably why we aren't seeing a problem.
Yep.
Okay, good information. Because we're using our Arden to we find it really nice to have services on our network, whether it's PBXs, whether it's servers, NAS, all that different type of stuff, cameras, and we find it nice that when we do have to go into like an EOC or into a shelter, we put a node on Arden node on, and we get to punch through all their firewall rules that might be restricted in some places, and we can always get to the services that we expect to see.
I think the initial premise of Arden is still valid, but I think now that they're getting into the wide area networking piece of it, I don't think they've thought it out completely, and I think they're actually misusing some routing tools or routing indications as flags instead of network routes, and it's confusing the hell out of the network. But that's my opinion. I don't know if I'm right. I know that if I brought this up, I would be summarily kicked out of what I was doing. So I'm just leaving it this way and coming up with other means to get my job done.
Okay. Good to know.
And later on, I'll have some words about that, some interesting things that I found out.
Okay, well, we'll come to you after we're done with Charles's list. Thank you very much.
Well, my next question will probably dovetail into what he wants to touch on. Mark, a recommendation for kinds of equipments necessary to set up at commercial locations, let's say, like this. I'm trying to set up something for hospitals in Brooklyn because I've been approached by them and they want some kind of solution. So what should I put at each of their locations, not only as the routing device itself, but on the RF side as well? Because I know we lost the 3 gig band completely.
No, we didn't.
I thought that was sold off.
No, the bottom 50 megs is still there.
Ah, okay.
But I don't think there's any hardware that'll go down there. Is that what the problem is?
Yeah, the bottom 50 megs is still there, with the caveat that the shoe could drop any time. But the bottom 50 megs, that band is still there, and if you got Arden equipment for it, it's still working, as the guys out in California found out.
So are they using the import versions of the 3 gig?
They're using 3 gig versions of Ubiquity.
Right.
And in fact, I have a couple of 3 gig nodes myself that are just sitting on the shelf. So Charles, to your question, it generally in an Arden node, the router and the RF are all in one box. Okay, so you put the node up on the roof, point it whatever direction you want, and the antenna, the RF is all in the one box, and right in back of that is the routing equipment. So all you need to do is run a Cat 5 up there, Cat 6, whatever you got up there, supply power at the bottom of it, and that node is on the air. Now you still have to take once you have that down where it's going, then you have to bring it into some sort of network and do with it what you're going to do. Now you can have multiple Arden nodes on one rooftop, even on different bands, and you can have them talk to each other through something called DTD. There's a DTD connection on each node, and DTD stands for device to device, and that runs on a separate VLAN. So if you need multiple nodes at one location to talk to each other, you now get yourself a VLAN capable switch running on VLAN 2, connect the nodes together, and magically they're all talking to each other on this one VLAN. Now, if you're familiar with the old days of NetROM chips, when it was in the TNC, there was a mode where you could have TNCs talk to each other through the RS-232 port. You had to ground one lead or something like that, and it set it up in a different mode. and you bring, if you had two of them, you could just bolt them together. But if you had multiple, you had to have some sort of diode matrix.
I remember that.
Okay, well, this is the same concept. Now, Chuck, to your comment, most switches pass VLAN traffic. Maybe, maybe not.
No.
Okay, the issue
I'm
there.
headed off to the parade.
Mark, can you mute?
Oh, hi.
Yeah,
I'm heading to the parade. You want anything from downtown Montgomery?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Cindy was calling earlier.
I don't know how to mute Mark from here.
She said, "Don't wake me up."
Okay. Don't rain on my parade.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so a normal VLAN switch may or may not pass VLAN traffic, even if it is only one. And that is because some VLAN switches will only have or only allow a certain packet size. When you're running VLANs, you can't exceed that packet size. And therefore, your packets will get corrupted and you may have connectivity problems. So the advice is, if you're running VLANs, always, always, always get a VLAN capable switch.
Good information to know. We have a few sites that have multiple VTD nodes on the rooftop or on the tower. So,
And these days, to get a VLAN capable switch, like a 4 or 5 port job, you're probably looking about $30, maybe $50.
Microtik will do it.
Just go ahead and do it. Just do it.
Okay, if I had an Omni antenna, what kind of range do you think I should get from, let's say, the normal size of buildings in Brooklyn?
So in any unlicensed spectrum, I'm going to scream into your face, do not do an Omni. Never, no, don't do it. Hell no. Don't even freaking consider it.
Even on the amateur frequencies in that space?
There isn't any amateur. Well, the only place you're going to get amateur frequencies is going to be -1, -2 on the 2.4 band, but that's a narrow channel. And in New York City, you're going to have all the guys that are already doing that when they're not hams.
Right.
Don't do it.
Okay, but think for a second. I've got a dozen hospitals scattered all over Brooklyn.
The radios are cheap enough. I can probably ship you a case of radios because I'm sitting on a pile of them. Don't worry about it.
Well, it's not the radios, the antennas. How do you...
They're integrated into the nodes. They're cast. It's all integrated antennas.
But each hospital would need to talk to others in different directions. That's why the Omni.
Not necessarily.
No, you're going to put... No, because you, first of all, in the mesh environment, you're going to have the same packet collisions that we have in simplex storm forward nodes. You're going to have separate nodes. You're going to have separate frequencies, and you're going to network like it's just no Omnis.
Charles.
Yep,
you don't need a mesh network when you're doing Arden. Okay? You need a backbone network with spurs sticking off of it. That will get you your connectivity. You don't need a mesh network.
All right, well, I'll get the locations and let's map this out.
Yeah. The other problem that I found, when you're trying to do mesh and you're using time-sensitive packets, whether it's, like video cameras, we found this out really quick. If you put more than one video camera that's running a UDP stream on a node where you're on the same frequency and you're trying to mesh, it drops to its knees and the throughput goes to nothing and the video doesn't work. So we put every node on its own frequency, let the Arden actually route a real network, and the stuff works great. The store and forward shit just doesn't work. Get it out of your head. It doesn't work in packet. It doesn't work it just doesn't work faster in Arden.
No. QRM is still QRM no matter what frequency you're on.
You can't occupy the same time and space with time-sensitive packets. Plain and simple.
All right.
I really would love you to unmute and verbalize all this, because in the chat, people aren't getting your well-versed knowledge. But yeah, and because on the Arden mesh, you tend to be routing time-sensitive packets, we would on VoIP, and then with video, like cameras and IP cameras and stuff, they tend to be UDP streams. And of course, there's no AX for UDP. So if you're trying to store and forward on the same frequency, that's the biggest reason I say no to omnis, because you're trying to do store and forward on the same frequency, and that just doesn't work. We knew that in packet. We know it just faster in anything mesh. And because you can't hear it and you can't hear the collisions, and you don't normally have good diagnostic tools to see the collisions going on, you don't realize what the heck's going on.
Charles, I think the biggest thing you have to remember is that if you're using omni antennas, that's a repeater mentality. If you're doing networks, you have to go point to point. Different mentality when you're using mesh versus repeaters. And omnidirectionals are great for repeaters because they can hear and transmit at the same time, but nodes don't. They're half duplex.
All right, and if you're using a star pattern, though, isn't everything coming into a single point of failure at the center of the star?
No.
They're separate nodes. Everybody's got.
There is no center of the star.
Yeah, that's what they do with DTD. Everything is networked together with Ethernet cables. It's not done on RF. We'll go through the architecture, and I'll send you some pictures, and I'll show you into the mesh, and we'll log in and we'll look at that. You'll see what that is. I mean, it'll make sense when you're thinking about it like network, and it's really cheap to do. Again, the reason I've got boxes of nodes and stuff like that I could send to you, because I've got boxes of them from the WISP industry. It's cheap to put more transmitters up, and with a zip tie and a PoE, you could, and the antenna's integrated into the radio, it's really not a problem.
Okay, I'll get the addresses and then we'll work out.
As you guys work this out, are you going to share it with the group?
Oh, of course.
Great.
Doesn't make sense to hoard knowledge.
Well, and that makes me think, since I've done it so long with the WISP industry and played with the wireless stuff, it makes me realize that everybody else doesn't have that knowledge base, so they don't have the concept. So yes, we probably need to create diagrams so that people understand that and can translate what they would have known for their RF and amateur radio knowledge and shift the thinking. Yeah, okay, that it's an education and knowledge thing. So we'll get to that. But you're making good points, Mark. You and I understand this, but obviously other people haven't gone through this enough to understand the concept and the shift in the paradigm. So that points to an education thing. So clearly we've got to work on that.
All right, pass it over to Mark. I'm going to mute.
All right, you're done with your list? Okay, good. All right, Mark, you're up, buddy.
Okay, Charles, first of all, I may have missed it, but you were talking about your RF on 2 meters. Have you put your own RF back up, or are you still using me?
No, I'm still using the West Orange site. Trying to get people to come over here to help me put the tower back up has been difficult, either because they're recently retired and traveling, or we had that cold snap and they didn't want to leave their house.
This is not the time of year to do antenna work.
But this is when we'd think about it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. What's the old saying? If the antenna survived the winter time, it wasn't big enough.
Right. Or if you're not putting it up in the wintertime, you're not living a good life in the good weather.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let me just comment on what Charles and I are doing here. We may have mentioned it on the last call, but I'm going to say it again. We are leveraging one decent radio site to support 2 and maybe 3 separate BBSs, all sharing the same radio equipment over 44 net. And what it is, it's a 2-meter radio at my house here in West Orange, which is on top of a hill. It runs Direwolf, which is the TNC modem. And that is a network-based device. It's not USB based. So because it's on the network, Charles can use it. I can use it here locally. And I actually have my BBS in North Carolina tied into it. So depending on what call sign you use to call a BBS, you can reach one of three different BBSs, and one of them is 600 miles away, all through the network. So this is one of the advantages of networking that are not quite obvious. You know, most people, when they bring up Direwolf, they'll bring it up using the local host network. Well, that's an IP address. In this case, it's a different IP address that's reachable over a pretty far network. So something that's cute about what we're doing here. And it took very little to make it work, because I had the radio and Direwolf running already. I just moved it over to the frequency that Charles wanted and gave him the IP address. We had a couple of bugs getting it up and running, but it works.
So can I interject just a comment about that? Because I've been thinking about this since you announced it last meeting. The other thing is, especially in a dense market like New York, New Jersey, the metro market there in the city, that's real good, efficient use of the spectrum, because now you've got multiple users using one radio, and you're minimizing what we don't like about digipeaters and stuff like that, is because it's half duplex. Now you're using an organized system in the back end on the IP side, that the three different stations are getting the most efficient use of the spectrum, where you're on one frequency for that RF TNC, and it's a software TNC because it's Direwolf. That's good practice in a limited resource on 2-meter packet frequencies. So I just wanted to interject that, Mark, because I like the concept that you're doing.
Okay. One comment about it to Charles. I do have coverage into Nassau County. I believe if someone were up on top of Nassau Medical Center, he could hit me. And that would mean he would be able to hit all three BBSs. So to your point of coverage towards the east, well, they might be there already. All you have to do is get up on a channel and try it.
You know what would be nice, Mark, is if you had a 220 radio, because the N2LI node is still not up, and that has broken a lot of the links, the backbone links between nodes on 220 out to W2PNU and stuff like that. So that would be, if you could put another radio on a different band on your location, and I don't know what your bandwidth is to be able to do that as far as time and your time in New Jersey, that would be wonderful.
Well, I actually have enough equipment on hand to do that. Okay, similar to the 2-meter side. But looking around, there's nobody else on 220.
Well, there was one. W2LI was up.
Well, that's a was, and that is now 5 years old.
Yep.
Okay, I haven't seen any movement by anybody within range of me to get another 220 radio on the air.
Okay.
Okay, so I do a lot of projects here, and if I saw that, yeah, I'd do it. I went out and bought a brand new radio to do that. Good. I've got the Raspberry Pis on hand. I got the shelves on hand. I got the audio interfaces. Yeah, I could do it. But I'm doing what I think is more important things now.
Understood. Time is a premium.
Yep. So if you can drum up some interest from other people to get 220 on the air, well, then give me a shout, and I can rearrange my priorities.
Yep.
But right now, I'd just be talking to nobody, and that's not an efficient use of my time. Well, anyhow, one of the projects I'm working on right now has to do with 44net. Now, we've all understood that 44 was original 44/8. In other words, everything beginning with 44 was ham radio related. That changed about 5 years ago. The ARDC people sold off some of those addresses, made a cool $100 million on it, and are now funding on our project. So it turns out I've been having some contacts with people on 44net in Europe. And I've actually have a couple of PBX links over there where you can call people. But they can't call me. And I was in contact with one guy in Portugal, called him up out of the blue one night. Surprised the hell out of him, which always happens like that. and say, hey, can you take a look at my some of the services I offer on 44net? So can't get through, can't ping you, can't see you at all. Well, one thing leads to another. I find out from one of the leading guys over there, one of the architects of this network, if you're on this network over there called Hamnet,
Yep.
they do not route to 44/9. So put that in network layman's terms. They don't route to the bottom end of the 44 network, the bottom half of 44 network.
And they did that because of the block that ARDC sold off.
Well, no, they do that because they consider the IP address range in the lower half of 44 net, lower 2/3 maybe, as internet. There's so much internet in there. They don't want that on their network, so they just don't route to it. Okay, you can route to them, and what they will do, you send a packet over to Europe in their range, 44/128/10. They will NAT when it comes into them. You'll pass it through their network. It will reach wherever it has to go, come back, be unnatted, and get back to you. So you on this side of the pond can get there, but they can't get to you. Interesting stuff.
Is that just because they didn't understand the way the 44 net was being allocated and they didn't know how to set the firewall rules correctly?
They don't want to deal with it. Okay. They want to make it simple for their users, not to have complicated routing tables and all that. So I am in the process of coming up on Hamnet. So without much ado, they gave me a pair of 27 blocks and a routing block, a pair of routing blocks. Without me asking much about it, unlike our friends out in California or wherever ARDC is, where you have to sell your firstborn to get any kind of allocation. They just gave it to me, and I am in the process of bringing it up as we speak. I went out and got a new router box.
Microtik, there you go.
Microtik router box. It has fired up. The VPN tunnel is up, and we were talking before about VPNs and how ARDC has just discovered them and made them work. Well, this VPN is up, and it's 8,000 miles away in Germany, the other end.
Now, are you going to be able to then solve this problem by routing stuff yourself to the
Well, I now have 2 separate address blocks.
Right.
Okay, so I am going to send their address blocks to them. I'm going to keep this side of the pond's address blocks on the IP network. Now, I figured out how all the networking needs to do that. And I just got an email back from him how to set up BGP. They run BGP on their network.
Well, we do here, kind of, but it's limited to the people that are smart enough to do it because it's not the faint of heart. Right.
So as we were on the call here, I just got an email from him with all the commands to set up BGP on the Microtik. And I'm kind of excited about this because this will allow me to do things over in Europe now that I couldn't do before. And they can actually reach me now. And then once that happens, then I can translate it to 44net or Arden, because I will be setting up or actually upgrading my web proxy here. So you came in on one network, you can go out on another network and look at any website on the other network.
That's amazing. Excellent. Thank you. Because that's as soon as you started saying that, I'm like, oh, we should get somebody to do that. And Mark's already doing it. So thank you.
Yeah.
It'll solve a connection problem I have with Germany.
Yeah. Well, as soon as I get this running, I'll try to set up some sort of BBS connection over there. They have a few of them. If you read their literature, They are very proud of the fact that they set up this whole network pretty much on the air using microchip equipment. There's some Ubiquiti and some other guys in there.
Well, I think they're still using quite a bit of FlexNet over there too.
Well, they're very proud of the fact that they got this off of VHF. Packet is now off of VHF and onto this network. So that's something that we should be thinking about over here as well, I would think. You know, and have ORF it's going towards one network instead of somebody doing HF, another one doing VHF, UHF, a 220 node, you know, and then microwave. Put it all in the microwave, and it's all there in one place for everybody.
They've got a couple of sociological factors that have made it easier for them to do amazing things. One is that their countries are the sizes of our states.
Yeah.
And two, the natural settlement patterns of where all the people are were never artificially messed up like the likes of Thomas Jefferson did with the Homestead Act of the United States, where one house on every 80 acres of land in the flyover states. So
yeah.
That's how they've always been able to lead us in those facts to stay on craft, because they don't have the geographic separations that we do. So, but it proves that it can be done though. So that's the exciting.
Yeah, it can be done, and it's working well for them.
It always has. Even on VHF and UHF, they always did great jobs with it.
Yep. Well, they got a lot of mountains over there too, and that helps. But you know, if you talk to the guys who were in the mountains, they said, "Well, you know, we can't get away around the mountains."
No doubt.
Yeah. So no matter where you are, the topology.
But they've got the density of people, and by default, you're going to have a density of hams much higher than what we typically see in the U.S. So.
Yep. Okay. The other thing I can talk about, I think I mentioned this on the last call or some call about NOAA weather radios, specialized NOAA weather radios. I've been working on what I would call version 3 of that now, a new software load. It looks like we have one of our initial problems fixed with the Piwitrix software, in that it wouldn't register to a PJSIP server. You know, Astra's got the bright idea that PJSIP was better than SIP, and has deprecated SIP. I don't know why, but it's a more complicated protocol, but you know, I won't go there. Well, it looks like we got that fixed. So if you're running a modern Astra server, you can register to it. But I've also come up with an image that runs on a Raspberry Pi that's going to have WireGuard in it. So we won't need to have an official ham network anymore. Well, that'll be useful, but we can run it point to point. And I've set up a WireGuard server here for a couple of things that I use. So we'll be able to.
Another interesting thing with that as well is that you also, with WireGuard on that, then you can put it on 44net fairly easily as well.
Well, if you put it on 44net, I'm native 44net, and my server, which is what you have to talk to get the emails out, you're right there. You know, you don't even need WireGuard. Okay. So that's that. And I've also started streaming New York City weather radio to an outfit called NOAAweatherradio.org, O-R-G. And they have a number of volunteers that scattered around the country that have set up radios on the various NOAA weather radio channels and are streaming the audio to a central point, so that you get on the internet, you go to this NOAAweatherradio.org site, and you can listen to any of these streams that are coming in from wherever in the country. So one of them is mine now. And this new image will have that kind of software in it to send to them if you want to do that kind of thing. So, you know, still other things that might be useful in our bag of MCOM tricks.
Excellent.
You know.
Now, am I leading to believe that you have the ability, because of the SIP, that you could put those on any of the Hamgate VoIP systems or anything like that? You could just dial an extension and listen to weather radio, or?
Absolutely. There's about a dozen of them on Mesh Phone right now.
Yeah, we just dial very easily through our system and pop out on the mesh phone.
That's interesting. That's good. That's another very powerful tool to do.
And if you want, you can pull up the mesh phone white pages and see what those phone numbers are.
Good. Okay.
Okay. I don't know if Charles ever forwarded you the URL for the white pages, but I'll leave it up to him because that'll be on his network.
No, you can put it in the chat if you want, Mark.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to figure out what it is myself, but okay.
Hiya, Kohai.
Say again? Oh, okay. So that's out there. And yes, that's why we developed it in the first place. We wanted to hear weather radio, didn't just call it on the phone. But it evolved into a lot of different things, and it's improving. Also, the software image I have is the latest and greatest Trixie image out of the Raspberry Pi folks. So that will be around for a number of years now before it will need upgrading.
Yeah, Mark, do you have LDAP running on your mesh phone system?
No, I don't. I don't have LDAP, but there's a couple of other groups out there that have it.
Okay, because I was recently asked a question about making LDAP available on the Hamgate PBX, and I haven't chased that down yet.
Yeah. No, I don't have it running. Like I said, I know of 2 other instances where it is running. But unfortunately, the schema is different between the 2, so they can't actually
the data
exchange data between them. However, what I do on the white pages, once a night, I run a routine that makes up an XML file that is available for download. So if you want to run that something locally, you could just get that XML file and build your own local white pages. Now, I have given some thought to having a distributed database for white pages, in that every record that I have has its own unique UUID number. All right, so if somebody were to generate something on locally to them, they could just still exchange it with others because it would have a real unique record number.
You know, Mark and Charles, both of you have been doing some pretty cool stuff, and kudos to everybody who makes all this stuff work. And I think the next thing is to get users to utilize, especially when we mentioned for Encom and stuff like that, we've got to get some of the people who aren't the gearheads that make stuff work. We've got to come up with materials to get people to use it. And whether it's a guide or a video or a yellow covered book, to use some of these features so that in the time of emergency, when we envision these things working, we've got people that know how to utilize that, and a number of people. So let's think about that as well, is that when like the weather service extensions, like the LDAP or like the white pages, and when someone shows up and they go into an EOC or into a shelter and they've got a SIP phone working, they know how to make use of it in the emergency. And I guess that if they're not a network person that knows, and then they built it and knows it works, they're just a semi-advanced user that knows how, hey, I know it's there, but I don't know the dialing sequence or whatever. So let's think about that, and how do we get mere mortals to be able to use it? I guess
one of the keys that will crop up with that will be what kind of network facilities are available to that person.
And we've got to address that as well.
Yeah,
and that's where I like, in your Go box, you've got one, maybe 2 MikroTiks, one that's on mesh and one that's on Arden. You plug them in, plug everything into that, and it just punches through whatever firewalls they've got at the location.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things I advocate for, because then you just know I'm just going to plug into the Ethernet port and I'm going to punch through and get what we need working, right?
Yeah. One last thought. I mentioned that this whole thing is called PyWix Rix for the weather thing. That's PIWXRX. It originally started out as being only available for a Raspberry Pi, but there is it is written in Java, so it can run on an x86 machine if you want. Okay. It supports two different types of radios to listen to your NOAA weather transmitter. One is a RTL SDR dongle. Okay, there's built-in support for that. And there's also built-in support for conventional FM radios, but you need an analog to digital card for that. Basically a USB sound fob, but there's better ones out there that you can build from a kit that are made for this type of thing. And actually, let me do a show and tell here. Show and tells are always wonderful. This, let me get it back here. This is a rack mount strip with a Raspberry Pi on it. You know, I'm looking at it from the back here. Where is that thing?
Yeah.
That's over here. That's this guy.
Yep.
Raspberry Pi, an original USB audio dongle that I stripped down to make into an interface. And now two others that I've just added, made by an outfit in Florida called Masters Communications. And with this configuration, this will support 3 different conventional FM radios.
All right, do me a favor and hold that thing still for a minute. I want to do a screen grab for somebody. So I got you on the big screen here. And there we go. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, you got it?
I got it. Yes.
Okay, so this will support 3 different radios. And lately on eBay, I've been buying old commercial radios. This one is an old Vertex Mobile. It's called a VX2100. And I've been buying them for about $50 a piece. And this would be the equivalent or better of any ham radio that out there that will cover the ham or the weather band. You have to program them, so you need the software, which I actually have. And I actually found one setup for $80 that was a radio and a built-in Kenwood power supply. What a deal.
They're out there.
So I built that. I've come up with a standard build for all this stuff, and I've actually modified it for use in my van for APRS use on 30 meters. So I have a couple of Raspberry Pis in the van. One is a time server, which also gives me PPS, which means it has GPS, so that I feed into one of the into a Direwolf installation, which then generates packets that go out on the air on 30 meters on 10 megs, 10.149 megs. So if I'm driving around, you can watch me drive around all over the country. And the coverage is far superior than what you get on 2 meters. There's multiple stations all listening on the one frequency, and you're dealing with skip. So you don't run out of range, but when you run out of range of one guy, there's another guy already on the channel that you're going to run into range on. And I've already been copied in Washington State, running around the East Coast, and Europe. You know, 30 meters is 30 meters, and you get skip there, and the location packets follow the skip. So if you want coverage, you go to 30 meters. And that is another thing to keep in mind for MCOMs. You know, if you need reliable location support, go to 30 meters. Anyhow, I've talked myself out, Brian, so back to you.
Well, that's fantastic contributions this meeting. Thank you.
Actually, I lied. There's one other thing. The other half of Pilot Tricks, I forgot this. It actually decodes the alert tones sent out by NOAA Weather Radio. That's
so then is there a way for you to set up same alert counties and all that stuff in the software?
No, but what I've done is I've taken those alerts and converted them into emails that could be sent out on Meshmail, on Ampernet, through WinLink. But I also generate BBS bulletins with that information in it.
And that's passed around to the different Hamgate BBSs as they come through.
I'm on the list for.
All right, so there's, like I said, there's about a dozen different transmitters that feed into me. And if anybody wants these bulletins, and they can either get them from a local Hamgate, although I don't think Charles gets all of them. I don't send him all.
Well, sometimes I get a bunch of them from different areas, Mark.
Well,
that might be a routing thing.
Once in a while, Jano screws up, or I screw up. I'm not perfect here. But they're all over, and if anybody wants to set up one for their own local weather radio station, well, give me a shout, and I'll work with you to get it done. You will need some homebrew capabilities, no question about it, but it can be done, and it will work well. And Wednesdays, every transmitter sends out a required weekly test. So on Wednesdays, you get a deluge in the morning of all these weekly tests, but that's a good
Wednesday
thing.
morning at 11 o'clock, I think is when it happens.
Yeah, sometimes 11:05, 11:10, but yeah, around there.
Well, the time is officially between 11 and noon local time. Okay, so they could come at any time in there. I found that when you have a change from daylight time to standard time, a lot of the offices haven't upgraded their equipment, so it'll be an hour early or an hour late sometimes. But that's life. So the bulletins are out there. If you want to get on a distribution list for them, and you and I actually forward, I'll put you on whatever you want. It's no big deal. It's just a subscription list. So now I'm finished, and I'm even going to shut off my mic. How's that?
Well, you're a wealth of knowledge, and it's nice to see that we have people doing different things. So I've been playing with DMR a lot lately. I made a hotspot. Also, there's a distant repeater that I can get into, but I'm going to be activating a couple repeaters and all that stuff. So the 44 nut. We're fortunate enough that our local county built a whole brand new tower site that almost exclusively is used for races and Aries stuff. Nice brand new 180-foot tower and a 10 by 10 shelter and 2.5 racks and all that stuff. So I get to start putting toys in a good tower site, not just at the shack. So DMR repeaters are going to be going up, both a VHF and a UHF. And so in experimenting with DMR, I have a radio that uses the OpenGD77 firmware. And with that, you can actually make a DMR radio that runs that a hotspot instead of doing a Pi hotspot, which means you've got a direct access to the modem from the computer on a USB cord. So that got me to thinking, geez, why don't we use DMR for data instead of AX25? And the concept is that you wouldn't necessarily try to do it through the repeaters and through the networking and all that, but as point-to-point packet. And the concept is you're just using an established protocol, and it could be plug and play, but it doesn't look like there's any firmware set up to do that. It can be used similar to what the new packet radios are being used, but now you can get dual band radios, high power, all that stuff, because you can get a 25-watt mobile. And Charles and I started communicating with some of the people who coded up that OpenGD77 firmware. But the idea is, and they haven't wrapped their brain around it yet, we don't want to do the voice to digital conversion because the stuff we want to move is already digital. We just want to use the modem and the protocol and all that stuff and get around the codec because we won't need it. So we're toying with that and seeing if we can get any traction to get that concept to take off. And the idea would be, hey, all these old 2-meter and UHF simplex packet frequencies that we've been doing AX25, why don't we move up to higher speed, digital modes using the DMR protocol. Interestingly enough, Steve Stroh started to introduce with the zero retries some pages, and he introduced a page this week called HF Digital. And one of the things that there was a link on that page, it's where they're taking the free DV, the digital over HF channel and the sound card, and there's a piece of software that's not doing the voice codec of converting voice to digital. They're just using that same protocol to push digital data right from the computer. So that the free DV people are thinking about doing something similar as well. So that's just an interesting concept. That's another thing to try to get around your brains, is that the people that are using voice to digital to make, on HF especially, where they're getting rid of all the static crashes and all the white noise, and the audio sounds pretty good, but let's just not make analog to digital. Let's just push digital to digital and use that protocol and interfaces. So I would like to see that happen on DMR and the free DV. They're already doing it. So it's just an interesting concept that might be the next big thing of getting data onto RF, because we're using what other people are working, that everybody seems so hell-bent on going voice to digital. Well, all right, let's strip the voice codec out of it and let's just use digital to digital. And a lot of them are already tied to the IP stacks of computers and all that stuff. And it should be able to do some amazing things. Charles, I can see you're ready to talk about this.
I just wanted to relay that I received an announcement from the Rat Pack people, and on January 14th, they're going to have a session on free DV.
Okay.
Wednesday the 14th. And on Wednesday, February 11th, they're going to have one on the Arden software upgrade. So I'd like to see what they have to say about that.
Okay.
But this is an announcement I got recently from them.
Okay. So, the idea of not doing voice to digital to send digital data, just, hey, let's strip the voice part about it and let's just push digital to digital, is an interesting concept. And if we can do it on HF fairly easily, and if we can do it on DMR, but not through the existing DMR ecosystem like, Brandmeister, we're not talking about doing it there. Let's just talk about initially, let's go point to point with that. And Mark, I would like to have your input on that concept, being that you just heard my idea. I would like to hear your input on that, just a brief thought, if you would.
Okay, in other words, using DMR protocols to pass data instead of voice.
Right. And to get away from, so we're not doing AX25 and we got more data throughput, and because DMR is done on 12.5 kilohertz wide channels, they're not even doing 25 kilohertz wide channels.
Okay, you need to talk to Martin, VE6VH. He is working on a project called IP400.
Yes, we know. I know about that. Yeah.
Okay, and I think one of the aspects,
they've gone kind of dark and silent on their stuff.
Yeah, right. But he's the guy who's actually doing the work. Don't listen to Steve Stroh.
Yep.
Would you buy a used car?
I was on their mailing list, and all of a sudden it went.
Yeah. Would you buy a used car from Steve Stroh? So one of the aspects of IP400, as I understand it, is to do exactly what you suggested, which is to use C4FM, which is basically what you're talking about.
Yep.
Unlike what Yaesu calls C4FM, but C4FM is a 9600 bit per second stream.
Right.
That is standardized.
Yep.
Okay. So he's working on something to do that. And if you want a little more bandwidth, especially at UHF, he is looking at the second part of this being some sort of ODFM approach.
Yep.
Okay, and I think he's looking at something in the range of 100 to 500K throughput. But he's also looking at multiplexing the ODFM signal, individual carriers, to carry different data streams.
Yes, that I had watched. He had talked about that. Yes.
Yeah, so he's working on some interesting stuff. It's pretty complicated. I think he might need some help with interfacing it to the real world.
Yeah, so that was the problem that, with the IP400 project, he's got it, at the low power level, the chip level and all that stuff, he's got that nailed down, but then we've got to get it to a real RF amplifier that can handle that digital stream. And that's why I kind of look to the DMR radios, because they're already there. You can already plug in. They've actually got the serial chip right in the radio. And it's just, now you're just plugging in the USB and talking to the TCP/IP stack, and you've already got high power. You've got 5-watt HT. You've got 20. So that's an all integrated project or product. So rather than doing C4FM, the DMR format, just because there's more stuff that's already there in the wild right now that you could make work, it seems like it's just a software thing at this point.
Yeah, one of the things that's going to kill him with putting an amplifier on is the transmit receive turnaround time.
Yes.
All right. DMR's already got that figured out.
Yes.
Okay. They got that figured out years ago. I don't think he's caught on to what the ramifications are of that. So he's still.
He doesn't like the U.S. limitations of that we have that no other countries have either.
Well, he does. To be honest, it's the 56K limitation on the UHF.
Stupid. Right.
Stupid, absolutely stupid. But then again, if you want to run 6 megs worth of data, for example.
Yeah, we go to the ATV channels. I get it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Run some video over it.
Yeah, just a picture.
Yeah.
It's just,
and it doesn't even have to be fast cam.
The problem is it's only 2 to 4 channels though, and so that's limiting. We need to get this problem solved so we can use any spectrum for that. But it is a way to do that now. But again, I was excited about using the DMR radios that have already got amplifiers and everything built in, that you can just plug a USB cable in and be on your computer. It's like, wow, that's potential.
Yeah.
Now we just need somebody to software magic, make it work, because everybody just thinks about, oh, you're going to connect to Brandmeister. We don't do text messaging. I'm like, no, that's not what we want to do. I just want a data stream, and I don't want to be linked to the DMR network. I just want to do a point-to-point link on a simplex frequency, and that one we've got to get that concept out to the people that are coding that.
Yeah.
firmware.
Now the big problem that has to be solved is not so much the RF side of things. That's pretty well knocked. You may have an IP interface in the radio already. Okay. The problem is getting that interface into some sort of protocol that a BBS would understand.
Well, again, that OpenGD77, because you can turn the radio itself into your hotspot when you plug it in on the USB port of your computer, you don't need a separate PI for a hotspot. The radio is the hotspot, and the software talks right to it. So the thing that I think that might be there.
Okay, so how do you drive the USB port?
I'm sure it's going through the TCP/IP stack.
Okay, so how do you get your BBS to talk TCP? You got to do it KISS, okay, maybe AGW.
Yep.
Okay, or you do one of the encapsulation protocols.
Yep.
Okay, but that's what's going to have to be built into the radio.
But there's
now, if you wanted to do it right,
smart people that already understand that, right?
Okay, now if you want to do it right, forget about USB coming out of the radio. Make it an Ethernet jack. Okay,
yeah,
and run your IP on the Ethernet jack. Now you can stick that radio in your attic, and you still have your machine in the shack.
Yes,
you can pull the trick that me and Charles are doing.
Oh, no doubt.
Okay, don't even waste your time with USB.
No, but the only reason I'm considering that right now, because you've got the digital protocol in the radio and the RF amplification and all that stuff, and it's hardened enough that you're not going to have RFI problems into your cabling and all that stuff.
Yeah, but don't make
it to USB adapters.
Okay, Charles, go ahead. We doubled.
Yeah, Ethernet to USB adapter, Brian.
Yeah, that's kind of kludge. I understand Mark's point, and I agree with him. Is that the problem? Is that like the IP400, they've got their stuff working, but it's also flea power. When we're trying to go 60 miles on a point-to-point mountain rooftop or mountain site, and we can't get up there 6 months out of the year because of the weather, we've got to have something that's not breadboarded together, and it's going to work in a high RF dense environment and all that stuff. So it's, there's chicken and egg thing happening there with the hardware versus the software, meeting the two and having a good solution. There's plenty of people who could do this, but there's nobody that seems to think it's important that basically have to give all their free time to. So
now, one thing to put on your wish list with this, okay, is to make it such that you can use 2 radios on each end of a link and run full duplex.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that does away with any problem with transmit delay.
Well, the other thing is it Redivis? Redivis has a DMR repeater that runs full duplex, but they're doing it in the different time slots. They don't even have a duplexer on there. They're just using both time slots.
Right. They do that on the H1HT. The Redivis, Allen's HT.
They have a repeater that does that too.
Right, but here it's all in one HT.
Right.
If you look at their documentation, when this thing came out in June, that was one of the features that was hidden in the documentation, but I found it. And it has the capability. Listens on time slot 1, transmits on time slot 2. It flips back and forth so fast, it's the same as full duplex.
But again, that's also, if it switches so fast, the human ear doesn't hear it. But when you're in a digital stack, and that may not be fast enough for high throughput digital stuff, because, and I'd have to see some.
It's 27 milliseconds.
Which in a high speed digital network is a lot.
That's 1 packet frame in VoIP.
Yeah. So, again, there's possibilities is where we're going with this. But it seems like we get the most inertia and adoption to where there's not a need for somebody to build the hardware on top of all the software to do it. So Anytone is now doing single frequency repeater on DMR, right? So maybe it was Anytone and not Redivis.
No, it is Redivis. Anytone followed them.
Okay. Well, because that feature is actually in the ETSI DMR standard. That's the problem, is that nobody thought to use it this way, even though it was thought of with the standards board that originally created the whole thing. So
exactly.
It's food for thought. So Misko's talking about multiple audio sources into one mic input. Yeah, but we're not talking about doing an audio input to the mic. You're using a digital radio where you're just putting the digital, you're directly talking to the modem, Misko. And we're not doing analog to digital conversion, and we're not using audio frequency shift keying. So, and that's another thing that we all have to try to get.
You might need something in the audio domain, what Misko's trying to do here. He might need something along the lines of the X1J matrix, diode matrix switch, but on an audio level. Have each TNC listen to each other.
Yeah, and we might be crossing paths, Misko, but yes, gotcha. But again, the concept of, packet, as all of us old farts know, was always an audio to digital conversion. And we're trying to take digital that's on a computer network, whether it's a BBS or whatever, we're already in digital. We're taking it to an audio format to convert it back to a digital format. Damn, let's just break that use of audio stuff and go digital on everything. And we're getting closer and closer to be able to do that. Oh, QT sound modem. Okay, Chuck just said that. Misko, did you see that in the chat? So you might want to look at QT sound modem.
Okay, thank you.
You might want to also, if QT sound modem can do it, I wouldn't discount the idea of looking at Direwolf, because that may have abilities to do that as well. But
okay. I just actually I wanted to hook together several different types of modems, such as SCS Spectre modem or Cantronics Cam or sound card adapters, such as Rigbuster Advantage or something like that.
Yeah, I've got to think about what you're trying to do more.
And to use the same radio, the same 8-pin socket on the front.
You know what you want to do? You may want to use Direwolf and then use the AGWP interface, because now you're on the digital stream and you can actually use different, I think you do it with different ports or whatever, but you can have multiple IP inputs on the network. And the AGWPE protocol, because that's kind of like what Mark's doing with his 2-meter packet radio that Charles is connecting over the IP to use his physical radio. But that may be something that you're trying to do as well. So do you want to actually have separate modems or just the data streams? And do you want to do the protocol over the air?
The modems are separate modems. And
so each
one is connected to the same computer by using the USB sockets. And I want to put all the modems together to the same radio, so they could listen to the incoming signals in parallel. And of course, if they want to transmit, only one will transmit. And the BPQ software, BBS software allows for that.
I think that you're probably going to have better luck by using software modems and basically discard the modems you have, but have a software interface on that radio that is capable of simultaneously listening on that frequency and decoding and interpreting and doing what it needs to, no matter what's on that frequency. And you're looking more software defined radio. So you can have a software pack. It's like, oh, that's Pactor, or that's RDOP, or that's what is it?
Dara. You
Dara,
can
yeah.
do it with Pactor 1 only, but Pactor 2 and up, you can't do it with software.
Because that's a proprietary protocol.
Yes, of course. And the similar situation with GTOR of Cantronics Scan.
So the problem is, if you're trying to use multiple modems and you don't have software control of the modems, it may hear two different protocols on the same frequency. And if you don't have any control over the modems and the modem trying to respond, you're going to run into problems.
Yes, but actually there is a software switch in BPQ that prevents more than one modem to transmit on the same time. That is no problem. The software keeps track on which one modem should be active at any particular time, so no problem with transmit.
Right, trying to control the transmit side. The receive side is no big deal because each modem will decide whether it recognizes the data or not. If it doesn't, it's not going to do anything. It's the transmit side, and that's why I was saying use a diode matrix like we used to use with the X1J. That when one TNC is transmitting, the others recognize that and they'll stay silent. It won't transmit.
You see RTS, CTS high, it'll inhibit any of the other modems from telling the radio to transmit. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. You basically, you would have to have the push to talk on a matrix that has logic that says, all right, one of these modems is engaging in a communication, and hold off and don't do anything until the clear to send line is gone, keyed low or something like that. All right. We kind of diverged from that. That's a different topic from what we were talking about with the DMR and the free DV, but it's kind of related as well. But yeah, so Mark, the whole concept of merging radios and digital format that it's capable of doing with a good RF amplifier without having to breadboard it together, so you can put it on a mountaintop site without worried about RF getting into creating problems, is kind of one of the goals that I'm like, let's just load a new firmware because now it'll do it with that hardware that's got high RF power. That's kind of the concept that I was wondering if the people with OpenGD77 could get us to with the DMR radios. Technically any of the formats, and the IP400 has a lot of promise, and he's clearly smart enough to be able to do that. But again, he's got a low power board, and he still suffers from having something that's shielded and built properly into a site ready radio that's going to have high enough power to do anything with. at a dense RF site. So, but I think that is, one of the digital mode mass adoption and migration of getting off the old packet radio stuff, because that's just an analog to a digital to analog conversion to go back to digital. We got to eliminate that conversion to analog stuff. And we did that because that's what the analog radios were capable of doing over all the years. And that's what APRS has done. But now that we've got so many radios that are actually doing digital, and they're just taking the analog from the microphone and converting it right at the source of the radio. Now, if we don't convert that analog at all, I think that's going to be one of the things that I think ham radio needs to make that transition to not be overwhelmed and overtaken by all the people like Meshtastic and the stuff that they don't have to have a license for, that everybody seems to get excited about, that doesn't want to get their ham license. There's that inertia that we've got to address that problem from the human aspect, I guess, is my point. So it's just a thought process, and a lot of these things that are doing. Chuck, you got any input on this concept of unmute? And I'd love to hear your input on that. Because, being able to be on the bands that aren't 900 meg and up, we've got the propagation chops to be able to use it,
Okay, license restrictions. We can't do high bandwidth on UHF. The things that have that can solve our topology problems. And I think back to that Cantronics, not the Cantronics. I just threw a modem away I bought back in the 90s. That would do, it was a data radio, the data radio.
Yep.
That was expensive. And that's what we need today. We need a data radio.
Well, and that was my concept with the DMR radios that have that OpenGD firmware. It's like, oh, we can play with the firmware, and we may be able to do it with the Connect System stuff that's doing the M17 as well. That, that's giving us access to turn it into a data radio. And guess what? Those still meet the US restrictions of that stupid rule. Right? No, but that gets you to 4,800, 9,600 baud, depending on if it's 12.5 kilohertz or a 25 kilohertz channel. So that data radio exists. It's the firmware and software that somebody can do something with and still stay within the US stupid rule.
My mountain is I am not willing to invest in 9600 when I have 100 megabit links that go in 13.5 miles. So I just can't get enthusiastic about 9600 baud when I have links going megabits. Sorry.
No, that's correct. And those dedicated backbones, that's not a problem. But getting the users to get in, like what we call a user port or anything like that they don't have the good line of sight from site to site and everything like that to get the megabit type of connection or multi-megabits. But we want to get the users in on something. And if they can take, and, appliance operator, as much as I hate to use that term with digital stuff, that they can plug a USB radio in and they're the average user and they can get 9600 baud or, and guess what? It can probably do more than that if we get rid of this stupid US rule. We know that it can do that, but do it on the 2 meter band, the 220 band, the 440 band, so that the users can not have to have good line of sight coverage to be able to get into the network and not have to be using the internet. That's the end goal everywhere, right? We want to be able to not have to use the internet. So those lower bands for user access that are in less than optimal conditions to connect to get the most throughput.
Okay, and for MCOM or disaster communications, because I don't like MCOM.
Okay.
But community communications or disaster communications, we hopefully only need to reach our neighbors in the next county.
Yes.
Unless there's a nuclear war that it wipes out all the United States, somebody nearby is going to have internet access.
Yes, agreed.
So what we need to do is have someone in every county that can reach the neighbor county on RF and provide these internet type services, these Ethernet services.
Gee, doesn't that sound like the X1J node stacks Neighbors to the north, south, east, and west. Wow, we've gone 30 years backwards.
No, we haven't gone backwards. So the concept still remains, but the problem is we've lost a lot of institutional knowledge of people that understand that. Doing that today, sorry.
Okay, that's my shot at terrestrial packet radio.
Oh no, I get it. No, you're right, and so we're not going to have the multi-megabit with the current regime and the rules. But yeah, you want, the problem is we've also still got those areas like where I am, 2,000-foot mountains between the two users is commonplace. And guess what? Those 2,000-foot mountains and everybody where they live, they're also hemmed in with trees that are 80 to 100 feet tall. That's the norm on the East Coast. You get down in the Carolinas, it's those 100-foot lodge pines that they make telephone poles out of and stuff. And those things are brutal RF. In southern New Jersey and the Pinelands and all that stuff, especially the higher frequencies, 900 meg and above, those nice, moist, sap-laden pine needles are perfect detuning stubs and turn the customer or the signal into just might as well be a lead wall. So yeah, but your point is well taken, Chuck, and you're not wrong. And that's, we go from the hilltops to a local pocket of coverage that users can get into via RF. But we need to do it at more than 1,200 baud right now, is my point. And converting the analog or the digital to analog to go back to digital the way we do it now, because we're still using 1,200 baud AX25, whether it's AX or whether it's APRS or whether it's, we need to break that particular logjam. Arden clearly is one of the ways, Arden and then Hamnet and all that stuff. We can do mountaintop to mountaintop multi-megabit. We've got plenty of people that know how to do that, but it's getting down to the user level with a more appliance operator friendly mentality is the challenge that has to be overcome, right? I was hopeful that this DMR firmware version might be one of those ways to get there. The IP400 project, Mark, it's got potential as well, but again, it's not plug and play for some people, Don, what you got?
I got a question for Ted. Ted, I haven't heard back from Paul concerning that problem on the hill. Have you heard from him?
He was on this morning, and I asked him if you guys have talked, and he said no. So you got his email or his
Oh, I
phone
called
number?
him. I called him and left a voicemail. I haven't heard back from him.
Okay, yeah, still no bulletins going to EDH. So you two guys got to get together and go to the site to get it working.
No bulletins coming to W1EDH.
That is correct for the last 2 months.
And you figure it's a W1EDH problem?
According to Paul, he thinks he has to go to the site and fix some files to fix that.
Okay, well, I haven't heard back from him, so if you talk to him, you can let him know to give me a call.
Okay, I
don't-
can talk to him. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to the message I left for him. Now
Yeah.
that fellow that called contacted me from Norwich. I spoke with him. We got his problem resolved.
Okay, very good. Yeah, EDH is on the air and working very good, but it's not receiving any bulletins from me, and that's the only source of bulletins for EDH, Don.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll try to leave another message for him. But if you talk to him, have him get in touch with me so we can set up an appointment.
We want to talk to Pat about this too, because maybe that's the bulletins is something with Ted's node, and Pat may be able to remotely sysop some of that to solve that problem. So,
yeah, I don't know. It's a funny situation, Brian. I connect to EDH just fine. Round trip times are excellent, but for some reason, EDH, we think, does not accept the bulletins that I'm trying to send to it. It's a little strange, and apparently Paul has an idea of what's
Well,
needs to be fixing.
We may be able to remote sysop that problem too, and Pat would probably know how to do that best out of anybody.
And also Pat has a good idea too. Yeah. Brian, I got a question. I think Jason is gone. Did anyone see his email address? I think he put it on chat, but I don't know how to get there.
There's a little chat thing at the bottom of the window. It should be right next to.
You
gotta hover over the bottom part of the window with all everybody's pictures.
Do I just click on that chat box?
Yep. Just click on the chat and it'll open up on the right-hand side of your screen. It should open up and have all the chats.
Okay, I'll look over there. Thank you.
All right, let's see. We're almost 2 hours into this, which is normal. We could probably talk forever, folks. But
yeah, just one comment. We're getting close to the file size for the recording.
Okay, you go ahead and stop the recording now. That's fine.
Well, we'll keep it going until the flag comes up red.
Okay.
All right, why don't you just open up for questions, because there are people that have just been listening and see what they have.
Open the floor for questions then. Look at that. They're rolling in, Charles.
I'm being optimistic. I don't know.
Yeah. Good try.
Oh, it looks like Chuck's typing.
I hope that doesn't mean that everybody here didn't understand anything that was conveyed.
There's going to be varying levels of that.
Well, let's just, let's find out. N5MDT, the first time here. What thoughts do you have?
You're on mute, Mark, if you're going to answer. There you go.
Oh, okay. No, I really don't have any. Like I said, I was just here listening, acquiring knowledge of what you guys are doing.
So, Mark, you've been around the packet world long enough to know, what do you think of my concept of trying to break out of, doing the digital to analog to accommodate radios for so many years to go back to digital? What do you think of the concept that we really need to break that, and we need to have massively already production available radios to get a mass adoption and a shift to that? What's your what are your thoughts on that topic?
Well, I haven't really thought about it that much because amateur radio operators come and go so fast, and it's a plug and play world for these guys, and you get way beyond capabilities real easy. And that's the big problem I'm having with the county here with 100 plus Aries races operators. They can't adapt to even sound card modems. They don't have the equipment to tune them correctly and not overdrive radios or such, so that packet even works properly at 1200 baud. So I just really haven't thought about it.
Well, and that's a very real thing, and that's one of the things that, like, again, if we could somehow or another have firmware upload, or because you can make a cookbook of like, hey, go buy this radio, do this step, load this firmware, plug in your computer, this would work. That's kind of where some of this data communication, you're right, that's where it needs to get, because it needs to be a cookbook, and it's also got to be a short cookbook. Like, put it in the microwave and hit it for 3 minutes, and now you've got dinner. There are a large percentage of the hams that's the skill set that we're working with, and that's why I'd mentioned to Mark too, like when we're using the PBX system and we're using the mesh and you're doing the decoding of the weather radio and having these things, you got to have a simple cookbook of somebody that sits down and is at one of those terminals that can do that. How do you do it? All right, follow the bouncing ball. Yeah.
Well, The only way that we've simplified it for everyone is the mesh system around here is not connected to any other mesh system anywhere. We have Omni antennas on all of the county tower sites. All of the tower sites are connected through a 6 gigahertz microwave link provided by the county, and they give us a channel for that. So the Omnis are just for local access for the hams around the county to connect into that.
And then do you have a fair number of people that are doing that? Do they have a good gain antenna that they use from their home, and do they connect and do they exercise the system?
Well, we did have, and it's fallen out of favor because it's, we can't climb the towers just anytime we want because they belong to the county.
We've got the same problem. Yep.
Yeah. And the ubiquity and the MikroTik equipment is, a consumer grade, not a commercial grade. And it's degraded over the years considerably. It's been up for almost 10 years now.
Yep.
And we have to periodically take them down and replace them. And one goes down and it takes several people off the system, and we got to provide some type of VPN, between the nodes to get them to work again until we can get that node replaced. So what we're trying to do is come up with some type of commercial grade equipment that can replace the ubiquities on 500-foot towers.
Yes.
And that's our stumbling block now is we got to find somebody that can write that firmware for that commercial equipment. We can get the commercial equipment at auctions and surplus, stuff coming off of other agencies, but getting somewhere to write the software for the architecture that's in those is just impossible.
Yeah, but you're not the only one, because I suffer from the same exact problem in my county, and the two neighboring counties around us have the same issue, is that, hey, we'll let you up on the tower, but it's not going to be Joe Blow ham that just, hey, he has a harness in his trunk and go ahead and climb it. The county insists on they need to be insured, that if they're going to climb, and they've got to have half a brain so that they don't interfere with any of the stuff that's already on the tower, and they don't cause any damage and disruption in the.
Well, one of the things that the current Arden firmware supports is the ability to use raw IP links. So if you have commercial equipment that meets requirements for rigidity, weatherness, whatever, and it has an IP output, well, then you can configure a pair of nodes to use that IP link instead of having.
That's not the problem he's running into, because they've got a channel on their 6 gig commercial licensed microwave.
Yeah. Okay.
He's talking about the nodes that are on the county towers that service the users.
Okay.
Access node. And they've been up for 10 years and they need to be replaced. And somebody's got to climb the tower and replace that. And it would be ideal to have a user node that you're going to put on a tower that is more robust. And
well, let's face it. Are you going to expect to get more than 10 years out of anything you put up there?
No, but the point is that to do any of the tower climb on a 500-foot tower, it's a major undertaking. So
well, I understand that, but my point is, can you really expect any equipment you put up there to last more than 10 years?
No, it's not the problem. Is that, but you do.
Well, that is the problem.
Well, the problem is
you're talking about putting something up permanently. Well, there is nothing permanent once you put it on a tower.
No, but you want to put it. The idea is, if you've got the time and the people to do the climb, you want to put something up there that's going to last as long as possible.
Okay, so put up a piece of commercial equipment. Okay, well, as long as it has an IP interface, you can hang nodes on that. Modern nodes, even cheap ones that only have a coverage of 10 feet. As long as it's IP, you can configure something called an X-Link. And the two nodes will then talk to each other over this X-Link, which is now your commercial piece of equipment.
But I think what you're missing the point is that they've got mesh nodes on the county towers that the users are connecting, because those are the user ports, so to speak.
Well, that's the problem you have.
Yes.
And in fact, Arden is on the process of deprecating a lot of the early equipment. the current images simply won't fit into them. So you got to replace them anyway. Now, yeah, there's nothing else available to a user, a consumer. Is he going to spend $1,000 to buy some 10 gig equipment to reach that tower? No. So you're behind a rock or a hard place here.
Well, you know, he's down in Texas, so and to answer the question about the 500-foot, Chuck, it's when you get in the flatlands, higher is better just because a 5-foot undulation in the terrain creates a big shadow compared to us that have drastic difference in elevations, and it's basically that's where the point you're told you can have access on the tower is. It may be a little of both, but I guess to what Mark's dealing with, and I struggle with the same thing. If you're going to get a commercial tower climbing crew to go up there and put stuff up there, do you want to use something that was already repurposed old ubiquity equipment that's already 5 years out of favor? And do you do all that and then go up, or is there hardware that will accept the Arden software firmware that you can put up there that could be newer equipment that would have a longer lifetime and it's already not recycled commercial gear is kind of what I think Mark is struggling with the most, because that is the real problem. And of course, having the budget to buy that hardware to put it on the tower, as well as the climb and the crew and all that, because the county sites, we've got a lot of counties in the regions that are willing to do that. They just don't want to do it dangerously. And that just means having professional tower crews to climb and do the stuff. And that's always problematic with hams that are, doing it on no budget.
You talk about tower climbers, right? Well, apparently there's a class of climber that's even more rare than a tower climber, and that's a water tower climber.
Yes.
Okay. I heard about that with the Arden group in Delaware. They had a water tower that they had to put some stuff on, and they had to get a water tower climber. I never heard of that before.
Well, because there's so many different classes of water towers, the guys that can be outside, it's not like going up the inside of one of the ladders in one of those, bulbous types or something like that, versus the ones that have got to be out there climbing the vertical silo type and things like that.
What about the guy on top of the bald top of the tower?
Yeah, I know. I did a lot of cell sites on water towers of various types, and the ones that can rig and be on the outside, and the water tower climbers, because the water companies typically want people that, look, we don't want any of our stuff being compromised that it'll start rusting prematurely and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's all aspects in electrolysis on the metals and all that stuff. Even people that paint the towers, you're certified water tower. It's a real thing to deal with. But Chuck, his problem is if you're on a county site, you don't get the luxury of being at the 100-foot level all the time. You just don't get a lot of flexibility in being able to go climb there and do it wherever you want it. You're told, hey, you've got this range you deal with, take it or leave it. There's no problem. Those, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth, and sometimes the gift horse says that it's a 3-legged horse, but run the race anyways. So it's some of those problems as well. And which is why, like the people down in Carolinas and they talked about, look, we don't want to use commercial sites because we've dealt with these problems so many years, just link to your neighbors. But, that's hard to do as well. That's the reality that we deal with in all of this digital networking stuff. And there's got to be, you have to think around out of the box and the constraints that you operate in. So, yeah, it's easier. Yeah, you don't want to go up 500 feet if you don't have to. I get it, Chuck. You've got to use down tilt, and you're also, more susceptible to noise up that high. Then you've also got a longer Ethernet run. It's going over the 100-meter rule, so your power over Ethernet's susceptible. Yes. Problem. But
Right.
Go ahead, Misko.
Maybe one possible solution would be to establish new radio clubs or move the existing ones to the top floors of the high buildings.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. Your audio's low. Say that again.
Maybe one of the possible solution would be to establish a new ham clubs, or eventually to move the existing one ham radio clubs to the top floors of the high buildings in urban areas.
Yeah, you've got to understand Texas. Texas is a lot the size of 4 countries in Europe, and there's nothing in between most, and it's just, yeah, it's flat in some places, it's mountainous in the other, and it's just ranches. It's kind of like the inner part of Australia. So there are no buildings. But yes, I mean, and believe me, everybody uses those where possible. And then sometimes you can only, the tower is the only way to get something that has some reasonable coverage that you're going to get to a reasonable number of users. You know, it's problematic. Again, you Europeans have started life that you already lived in a smaller area. You already put all the people where all the other people are, so it's an easier problem to talk to each other. It's not the stupid U.S. stuff where Thomas Jefferson said, "Hey, let's give everybody 80 or 160 acres of land and just put one house on it, and then the next house is 180 acres away." And geez, why do we have all these infrastructure problems? Well, because Thomas Jefferson was a dumbass. It's plain and simple. Him and his father were surveyors. They created this U.S. Homesteading Act, and they carved up everything into perfect little squares and put one person on each square that was far from the other one. It created problems with the electric grid. It created problems with the phone grid. It created problems with the internet. It creates problems for ham radio at low power. You know, Thomas Jefferson caused all these problems 250 years ago. Chuck, you're laughing because I'm right. I'm a mapping and cartography guy, and I've worked on all these things and tried to solve these problems, so I get it.
Big cities in America are at the conflagration of rivers, and water in the rivers is noted to
because that was the original transportation network.
Yeah, but water always go to low elevation.
Yeah, oh, no doubt, and that's where the railroads are, because that's where the people were. Now, there's a statistic as big as the United States is. 92% of the population of the United States lives in only 8% of the landmass in the United States. So the people that are outside of that 8% landmass, it's always a problem to solve these issues.
And most of that's east of the Mississippi.
No, it's just most on the West Coast, because it's the same on the West Coast. It's these flyover states that we call them. And you know, if you look at a map and if you look at the county boundaries, all those flyover states, they've got almost perfectly shaped squares or rectangles for each county. And, you know, because that was Thomas Jefferson, they tried to use that land and encourage people to go do an unnatural pattern of settlement. And it all traces back to that. Hey, let's get the people living in all this land that we stole from other countries, whether it was Louisiana or Texas or Mexico or, you know, Canada. So we stole some of it from Canada, you know. But yes, the dense areas where you've got possibilities to do that, east and the West Coast. Why? Because it's near the water, but the elevations stink because the water seeks its own level. And guess what? When you're making railroads don't like to go over mountains either. So they follow the rivers and all that stuff. Then when the floods come and wipe the railroad tracks and the highways out, well, that's because you're at the low level. You know, sociology 101, right? All right. I could pontificate about that.
Okay. Brian,
Yes,
I got a question. Earlier you talked about a person that provides power supplies. What was that info again?
So he doesn't provide the power supplies. It's Jason Roush, W4APR, but he's got a website called RPC Electronics. Google that. He makes
RPC Electronics. Okay.
He makes a device. It's an edge connector. He recommends you go buy server power supplies. Server power supplies can hot swap into a rack, and you slide them in, and the power supply's just got an edge connector with all the connectors on it. So he makes a little board that goes on 25 power supplies, and then they're all nice soldered on.
Okay. Okay. A question for Charles. Have you heard about what's happening to Warren, O&A? He's usually active, or was active, in Jersey.
Yeah, I spoke to him on the phone a few months ago, and there were some issues. A raccoon had eaten the cabling and all sorts of crazy things. And he shifted the equipment from an inside shed to an outside shed. That's how the raccoons got to it. So he's trying to work through all that. But again, he needs encouragement because he doesn't see the traffic flowing through.
Who did he normally connect to? Someplace in northern New Jersey?
W2LI, and Chris is a busy man because as an old man, he went and had a young baby with a young wife, and now he's got even less time.
Yeah, I noticed Chris is not here. So
he hasn't been here for a year.
Yeah,
because he's got a business to run, and then now he's now a new father, and
understand. Yep.
And the other people besides Chris in the W2RLI system and the SNA system, we never hear from them. All we heard from over the past 5 years was Chris, because he got himself into their technical groups. But then it all fell flat. So we have no activity going on in northern part of New Jersey except for Mark sitting there in West Orange.
Yeah. Well, keep in touch with Warren. He was always an active guy, as I recall.
Yeah. He was sounding a little down because he says there's no traffic going on. So I don't know whether I should really keep this going or not. I tried to encourage him to, but I don't know.
He's still working tower climbing and stuff?
Some, not a whole bunch.
Semi-retired, huh?
He told us about 2 years ago that he's eventually going to lose these sites, and we're coming up with that, on that timeline too. So
yeah, that's scary. Yeah.
Well, and Mark, that's the reason that you've lost a lot of with the W2LI site with Warren stuff. That's why the 220 frequencies are as quiet as they are, because they were all the nodes that were on the 220. Say that again, Mark. You muted yourself out.
Oh, yeah. Hit the button in the wrong sequence.
Yep.
Yeah, I realize that. And, it's a chicken and the egg. You need some traffic to get some interest, but you need some interest to get some traffic.
Well, and the fact of the matter is the traffic that was there is just BBS operators talking to other BBS operators, but we've got no users on the BBSs. So that's the real problem. And again, this goes back to we need plug and play stuff for users to get on digital, to get on user reports and stuff like that.
They got to get interested in the stuff. And what's of interest to people now?
Well, and of course the internet, and now even Starlink makes it even easier to not have to use the ham radio to do that stuff. So it is problematic, and we've got to make that jump to at least 2010 technology that the consumers are used to from the internet. Not 1992 technology, which is what that's what APRS still runs on.
Well, if I got somebody to talk to, yeah, I'll put a rig together.
Hey, look, I'll talk to you all day long, buddy.
Yeah.
You'll get bored of talking to me, trust me. Speaking of which, I'm sure you all are now an hour and 20 minutes or 2 hours and 20 minutes into this. We got anything else? We probably ought to pull the plug because I'm getting kind of hungry and it's lunchtime. We got anything else to bring to the collective here?
Well, the other quiet ones is Alan and BKW saying, "Come on, guys, what's going on in your heads?"
I guess I could jump in here. I think one of the main problems I see is user base. There's not a whole lot of users where I'm at. You guys are very knowledgeable on what you've been talking about, and the main reason I'm here is just to soak up as much information as possible and to learn from you guys. But I think we definitely have a problem with the user base, but that's just my opinion.
No, that is the crux of the problem. Absolutely. And the amount of spectrum that we occupy or want to occupy to just talk to a bunch of sysops, if we can make it more attractive to a large user base, that's the magic bullet right there. And that's where I was leaning towards the DMR radios, because DMR is very popular because Everybody's putting hotspots up, buying radios, and guess what? You can go to Connect Systems, and they'll just like, hey, we'll send you a hotspot and a radio all programmed up. You plug it in, just start talking on it.
And all the analog repeaters are silent.
Yes, absolutely. That is exactly the cause of that, because the users have shifted to other stuff. And I listen to DMR and some of these big talk groups. It is amazing how much I see 75, 85, 95, 100-year-old DMR operators on there. And here's why. They've moved. They can't have their big shack anymore. They can't have their big antenna farms. They're in nursing homes or in deed restricted or antenna restricted apartments. They can have a 50 milliwatt hotspot and an HT in their room, and they can still talk to other hams. And in their twilight years, they're still able to be activated. And there is a huge number of those people that I wouldn't have thought would have made the switch to digital DMR stuff. And that is a very real segment of this population, of the ham radio population. And of course, there's a lot of these kids that aren't even putting on radios. They're connecting to the DMR network with their laptops. It's just extremes of the spectrum, but that is now the critical mass of users. So Alan, you're absolutely right. Getting the users and getting to the plug and play simple cooking recipe to get somebody on the air is one of the keys that has to happen.
Well, I disagree with you on that last statement, but that's just me. I highly value the challenge of learning things, and there's a lot of young people out there that are really smart, and I don't think we give them enough credit to figure this stuff out. I think they can. We just need to provide them the resources.
And with those resources, you got to have enough infrastructure so that if they do it, once they're like, well, I'm just talking to myself again, just like Mark. He likes to talk to himself down there. And
it's very difficult to get volunteers to master the programs for the youth. Here in Connecticut, we have a STEP program where if you get a volunteer to interface with FEMA courses to present them to the schools, you need a teacher who is going to be dedicated to that program and administer it. And getting those volunteers here in Connecticut is next to impossible. It's not that the equipment is not available, or the technology is not available, or the people who know about it aren't available. It's getting the volunteers to actually administer the programs. At least that's what I'm finding here in Connecticut.
Well, Brian, getting back to you, I didn't mean to attack you or nothing like that.
Look,
I mean, I just wanted to share what I thought, but it is a challenge, and but one of my favorite pet peeves is documentation.
That's a big one.
So perhaps we could add some documentation where there is none, and maybe that'll help out. But it is a real challenge. Don, I like what you said, and it is a challenge to reach out to the young people. Do we have enough mentors to to step in? That's a challenge too. But it's
my local amateur radio club. The average, the youngest person in the club is 50 years old, and we've been trying for a long time now to get young people involved, and it's next to impossible because they, for example, our high school. I'm in and out of high school a lot, and those students have more on their plate than I did when I was in high school for a whole year, and they have it every day. So it's very difficult to add more challenges to them and to get that all organized, unfortunately.
But acknowledging the problems, and Alan, you did not upset me by anything, and trust me, we all know we've got these similar problems, and actually admitting them and talking about them is part of the path.
Yeah, we got to talk about them. That's for sure.
To find a path to the solution. Ted, I put those links, and I put a link to that power supply adapter right in the chat.
Yes, I saw it, Brian. Thank you.
Welcome. But no, Alan, in fact, when we hear that from other people too, then we know that we aren't mentally suffering with the same perceived problem. It's not a perceived problem with multiple people talking about it. It's a real problem. So thank you for your input. You're more than welcome to always voice your opinion on that stuff, because that's, we're an open group here. We don't take things too personal, but we don't attack each other either. And nobody's.
I agree, and
so
I agree with you, and I just want to let you know that it's we're all facing a challenge here, aren't we?
Absolutely. And sometimes, somebody's said, yeah, we had the same problem. You know what we did? We did this, and like, hey, we gave them free coffee and danced up and down on top of our heads, and we had 60 people show up for something. I'm obviously being extreme here, but when somebody finds success in something, we like to share it amongst each other too. So by all means, you're always welcome to speak up, we like the fact that you said something. Mark, if you've got any more to add too, or George, you didn't have any microphone, but you can jump in. George, you can add something to the chat too. We'll certainly talk about that here. And Damon, if you've got anything else, please. Because, only doing these meetings quarterly, 2 hours is never enough time, because we've got so many ideas amongst the group. And it's actually a small group today. We normally have a lot more people participating, so.
Yeah, Brian, a comment?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So I'm down here in Florida, and I'm part of the ham radio community in Melbourne. They have a very large club there. Membership is well over 200 members, paid members on this amateur radio club, but their emphasis is contesting and DX. And I think about 2 years ago, I put small little articles in their newsletter every month about what you can do with Packet, how you connect, what you can do, send messages here or there, talk to your friends. And truthfully, there was no one that added to the activity on the user port. So as Alan pointed out, it's very discouraging about how do you get users, either old or new, to get active on Packet.
Well, so that brings an interesting point. There was a couple of rules of dating in Watertown, New York. I had a guy in the reserves, and he talked about when, he says, when we used to go to Camp Drum during our 2 weeks in the summer, he says, if you know where Watertown, New York is, it's northern New York, and it's, they see Canada from there. But one of the things they used to say, if you walk into a bar and no women meet your standards, well, lower your standards. So the point being is that, Ted, you've got all those 200 plus members, and they all want to do contesting and DX. Maybe you need to find another group to go to that isn't all a collective group of like-minded individuals that's all they want to do. So you're going to be beating your head against the wall if you're in that group. So do you, and Steve Stroh has talked about that in the Zero Retries, is like, hey, I'm into digital and I want to find digital people. So he went to maker groups, or he went to these, where these kids are that are doing, college level stuff. And he found people that were more interested in that, because, you gotta either change your standards or adapt, and just absorb into something, which means those people are never going to do digital.
And, yeah, that's a good point, Brian. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah.
But it's going to be hard because, the digital people in amateur radio, at least currently, is a smaller group. That's why we do this on Zoom, because look, we're scattered all over the country on this call today.
Yeah.
And there's only, 16 of us on the call. And of course, building networks that connect to other users that want to do digital when you're doing Arden, you know, the user density is lower too. It's a problem. All over the place. Yes, great, Chuck. It wasn't just all over the country because Misco's on the other side of the planet.
Well, that's why these Zoom meetings are good, because I just met Jason from Delray Beach, Florida, and maybe we can set up an RF network between us. So that's great.
Absolutely. So, but Alan, you bring up a good point, and it's good that we talk about that collectively. But remember the rules of dating in Watertown, New York in the summer.
Ted, do you know Sean, KD4WLE in Melbourne?
Yes, I have met him, and it's a tough guy to get a hold of. I guess he has, you know, he's working full time, and he might have a family situation. So he's a good guy, and I hope to see him soon, but I don't know when. He's locally here. He lives in Titusville, just north of me.
He's one of my forwarding partners. Every so often I can get him, but it's tough to get him.
Yeah, he is difficult. He used to connect into Melbourne here, but I haven't seen his connection for about 2 months, so I don't know his status.
He's active in Arden.
Oh, he's active in Arden. Oh, yes. All right. So he's not on Packet, but he's doing Arden. That's again.
No, he's got both, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he does both. You know, just to put things in a little bit of perspective, we're talking about trying to get the younger people to do what we do. In Brooklyn, New York, there is a maker group that has maybe about half a dozen hams, and they tend to be fairly young, fairly new, as in tech only, or maybe just recently got their general. But like all the younger techie heads that come through New York City, they're here briefly. They'll come in with the company and they wind up getting transferred somewhere else. And it's hard to nail them down to actually be part of something. And when approached on things like, you know, the packet networks and whatnot, I asked one of them point blank. He was the secretary of vice president of the group. He said, "Oh yeah, we did Meshtastic, and the only thing we did was send quick messages to each other. Did you get my message?" And then the whole idea fell apart because they were off doing something else. It's almost like the attention span is not there, or they don't see the utility of expanding out from that point. The other thing I wanted to bring up was any local traffic handlers who seem to be stuck in the WinLink mindset. You might want to remind him you can send radiograms through regular AX25 packet networks and Arden mesh. You don't have to do it on WinLink. Expand. Have multiple avenues available to you in case one goes down. Being stuck in one skinny path does not help. You got to be multifaceted.
By the way, we should all wish Charles a happy birthday because today is his birthday.
Yeah, the big 66.
It's on Route 66. There we go. So today,
where you get your tricks?
Speaking of dating in Watertown, right?
No.
Well, there you go. All right, Chuck. There we go. In the chat, we've got his birthday cakes going. All right. Now we're 2 hours and 36 minutes into this. We really, again, these quarterly meetings, we could probably do them monthly, but I bet you a lot of us would have a hard time carving out a time monthly. By the way, the next meeting, this was a quarter where we did it on a Saturday morning. The next meeting is going to be on a Thursday night to try to accommodate other people's schedules. I I need to see the schedule again because for some reason I haven't pushed out my calendar and it didn't show up on mine, which was why I was late this morning. So,
Yeah, it's going to be on March 12th.
go to my calendar before I stop right now.
At 7 p.m. or something like that?
Yep,
Yeah.
7 p.m., March 12th, Thursday evening.
Gotcha.
You know, it's very easy to set up your calendars in your phone and say, this is every 6 months. And you only have to put it in twice and have it repeat itself, and it'll never fail.
Every 3 months.
No.
No. Thursdays are every 6 months, and the Saturdays are every 6 months. You put in 2 entries, one on a Saturday, one on a Sunday, and tell it repeat every 6 months. You'll never miss it again.
Okay.
Make sure it says every 6 months, second Thursday, every 6 months, second Saturday.
Did the dates get posted? I thought I sent the list out.
It may have, but because I got buried in excessive list traffic, I missed it. So,
Well, gee, maybe the group's I/O calendar. We can set it in there to send out a reminder a week prior.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
I'm not the administrator, so Brian.
okay. Bring me afterwards.
Okay.
If I didn't send the list out, I will, but I thought I did. But
I'm sure you probably did, but I just did
who knows?
I did a massive delete because I had 1,600 different emails I hadn't read yet for list traffic, and I'm like, I'm never going to get to all these.
Oh, you got me beat. I only have 1,372.
I won't tell you how many gigs of emails I've got in my hard drive.
No, that's just my active ones that I haven't looked at.
Yeah, those are the ones I haven't had time to read.
Yeah, well, that's why I went and unsubscribed from a bunch of groups IO stuff. And the
It's
BPQ list was one of them. Since I don't run BPQ software, I'm like, it's just that list is too noisy for me right now.
it's crazy.
Very good. All right. Well, I thank everyone for your dedicated time this wonderful Saturday morning. It's always a pleasure to talk with everybody. It's always great to hear from everybody. And thank you everyone for your contributions today, Chuck, Mark, Charles. We really appreciate everybody's inputs because, you know, sometimes these ideas rattle around in my own head too long that I begin to believe my own bullshit. So sometimes I need a reality check. So
Yeah.
hearing from other people is important to me.
We have to be open to everybody's ideas.
Yep. All right. Until March 12th, right? 12th, 13th.
73.
Have a great quarter, guys.
73 all.
Have a nice holiday and stay safe.
Everybody.
We'll see you
Catch you on the Packet Network.
See you next
Bye.
week. Bye now.